Good morning, afternoon, evening, wherever you are in the world. Hello. So today's session is really, it's about those things that wake us up in the middle of the night, those fears and those worries about if we die or what will happen to our kids. It's something that, as a single parent to 3 children, it really did wake me up in the middle of the night. And stupid things would come up. Stupid things. And they would be, this pencil feels very bendy. They would be things like the amount of junk we've got in the house. Who would clear that junk? Who would be there to empty those drawers and get rid of all that stuff? Because we've been living here for what would have been 7 years at the time. And I hate going to the tip. And I have loads of stuff I just don't know what to do with. And so it's really pragmatic. Because I don't want to leave that rubbish for the people that I love. And it sounds really depressing, but actually, it was a way of taking a weight off my shoulders if I were to just be with those thoughts and those feelings. And I wanted the kids to kind of have a better relationship with their dad as well. That didn't seem to be happening, and so it was like, if I go, they're going to have no one. And so it made me really strong in terms of, it can't happen, it cannot happen, I can't leave my kids. And I know beautiful people, wonderful parents who've died of cancer, leaving their kids, and it's just the most heartbreaking thing. And so this is kind of dedicated to them. There are so many beautiful souls out there who didn't make it in this body, in this life, for as long as their loved ones would have hoped for them to do. And for me, it was never, actually, let's just breathe, because it's a really heavy subject. And I don't want it to be maudling. I want it to be positive. I want it to teach people who are floundering, who are lost and need some direction. So let's just take some deep breaths. Just 3 nice deep breaths. Because what doing that does is bring us back into the sympathetic, always confuses me, into the more chill mode, let's put it that way. And from there we have a better view of life. It's not led by our thinking so much as our wisdom, and that's the place that this is aimed at getting everyone, because that's the place where magic happens. And I don't say that lightly, I mean that. Oh God, this is awful. It's very, very hard. Feels like it's an 8B, so it should be really soft, but it really is not. So grab your pen and pencil, whatever you've got to hand, and just doodle along with me and let whatever's going to come out, come out. It's just another way of offloading. It's just another way of relaxing and stepping out of all this bullshit that keeps us locked into fear. One of the biggest gauges I had, like halfway along my cancer journey, was, am I coming from a place of fear, or am I coming from a place of love? Because when it was from a place of fear, that's when I'd be buying all the extra supplements, be reining in my diet, and doing everything by the book. Whereas when I was coming from a place of love, I knew all that didn't matter. I mean, it does matter to a large extent, because we function better when we have, you know, good nutrition, make time for ourselves. All of that is helpful, but it's not helpful to obsess over that. You know, the biggest part of my healing journey was letting go of a lot of stuff, and that stuff was that need for control, thinking that I needed to do it all by myself. And so when I'd wake up in the middle of the night wondering who was gonna empty my drawers for me when I'd gone and left this human bodysuit, it really did upset me, because my dad's getting on. The last thing I want him to do is have to go through all my rubbish. But then also I knew that my kids would go a bit bonkers if stuff just started getting thrown away. That they'd want some of this stuff, but where would they keep it? It's amazing what keeps you up in the middle of the night, isn't it? It's not like I'm worrying because I'm dead. It's more that I'm worrying because, wow, I'm going to need to buy a storage facility so that my kids can keep my stuff, because one day they might want it. God. It's amazing what the brain does to keep us engaged in fear. Because often, well, something I learned very early on was, I'm never in a battle with cancer. It was like that was a given. I really feel sad for people who, you know, their obituary has lost the battle to cancer. I think, I don't know, it just seems very masculine take on things. And for me, it wasn't about that. It was like, I knew, you know, every adversity I've faced in my life, I've wrung dry of some kind of positive outcome. And so I knew that if I followed that same brief, that I could see what cancer was here to give me, and that my life would be enriched. And that's what I want to help people see, is that it can be enriching. Because what I learned was what I needed in life. And it was more of this stuff. It was more mindfulness, mindful time, just to play, make a mess, not be worried about that. And so I'm inviting you to do that. Go out, buy yourself some pens. Oh my God, I love buying pens. All of my kids do. Well, Isaac not so much, but the girls definitely. I've got so many, part of that was the waking up in the middle of the night was, I've got so many not even half, like I've filled out a few pages of sketchbook. They're going to have to deal with all that stuff. Luckily now I've kind of put it all together because I don't use my sketchbooks, but I have all my stuff to hand now. So at least it's all in one place. But it was like, oh my God, I collect all this stuff. I collect toys from my childhood. They're not mine. I bought them off eBay and gave them to the kids for Christmas presents years ago. And so I've got like, what are they called, those little wibbly wobbly things? What are they? Weebles. I've got Weebles. And one of those tree houses, the dog that you pull along. And that stuff, that doesn't worry me, Of course my kids are going to want to keep that because it's amazing. But it was just, those drawers, the drawers of doom and the cupboards of doom, where you just put stuff and hope that you can just forget about it forever. Well, don't forget about it forever because it wakes me up in the middle of the night when I'm faced with my own death. I mean, we all are all the time, but when you've got cancer, you're sort of staring down the barrel of a gun, really, wondering when the trigger is going to be pulled. And so it's good to actually just be with those feelings that come up. That cold fear. And what I did to alleviate that, like in a practical sense, was to speak to my friends and just say, look, if I cark it, please, can you sort out my stuff with my dad and my kids? Because then I've got a practical solution. It's not going to keep me up at night. And also then I can start sorting through the rubbish as well. It's always good to have a good purge now and then. And mentally though, how I overcame it was just by being with those feelings of fear. Because the thoughts feed the fear. And so if I could be with the fear without the thoughts, I could reduce that feeling because the thoughts wouldn't be feeding it. I'm sure there's a song in that somewhere. So I would tune in to my body and what it wanted to tell me. And it was really uncomfortable. But it would pass. And so I became aware that I could do that. It's not always the easiest time to do it, in the middle of the night. In fact, it's the hardest time to do anything. But silly things like having like a fluffy cushion by my feet would be something I could tune into that would bring me back to the present. I could feel that texture and it would give me reassurance that I wasn't just in a world of fear. There was comfort there. There was safety there. And so that gave me the courage to be with those really uncomfortable feelings. And I'd always have something playing on my phone, some kind of subconscious reprogramming. And there's a really good YouTuber that I use called, I think, Jessica Hislop. And I love her all-night meditations because There are things like, I am so loved, I am so successful, I am so... And I wake up going, yeah, I am. It's just really nice. It's really reassuring. And do the health ones. I am so healthy, my body is so healthy, I'm so well looked after, you know, I look after myself, I eat well. It's just really reassuring. And so it takes you out of the fight or flight and puts you back into the present. And that's how to overcome these fearful moments. And sometimes it's just distraction, and that is a form of distraction, but it's more mindful. But it might be that you need to just get up earlier than usual, move around, watch some crap telly. At the end of the day, do what you're being called to do, because your body knows what you need. Your mind thinks it does, but it really doesn't. It's just like a gossip monger. When you can look at it like that, it removes some of the power of those thoughts. You know, healing comes when we're in a state of flow, not in a state of resistance. And so my mantra automatically, naturally, without even knowing this stuff, became the path of least resistance. And even if that meant eating a load of rubbish for dinner that night because I couldn't be bothered to cook, it was like the path of least resistance. What's going to cause me more resistance right now? Spending an hour cooking or eating something pleasurable and quick. And so I would do what I felt like doing rather than, you know, what everyone was telling me I needed to do. Because cancer is such an individual prescription, it's not, there is no one size fits all by any means. It's literally by following that guidance that you have automatically, naturally, and we're so gifted to have it. But unfortunately, it takes cancer often to bring it out, or some kind of catastrophic event in our lives. And so if we can tune into it and stay true to it, what we'll find is our life becomes infinitely better because we're following our heart's guidance. And we all know that it's there. You know, it might sound a bit kind of new agey, but it's not. We all know that we have that voice, that guidance. But it's just not something talked about in mainstream healing, in mainstream culture actually. It's becoming more so. It's your intuition. And so for me, the biggest part of healing was letting go of all that stuff that caused resistance. Meditating so that I could feel the energy moving around my body. Because for years it had been stuck. I remember doing 10-day silent meditation when I was about 25 in Australia when I was traveling. And I just couldn't. On day 10, you get to the part where you can let the energy flow freely around your body. I think you're supposed to be doing that most of the time, actually. But I just couldn't, because it didn't flow freely. But once I started tuning in, letting go of old beliefs, allowing that intuition to take over, I found that flow again. And being in that flow is really pleasurable, more pleasurable than any drug. Because it's what we're supposed to be doing, it's where we're supposed to be. We spend our lives resisting that because we think we need to follow what our mind is constantly telling us. But we don't. We need to tune into something bigger than ourselves and allow that guidance to guide us. Because that guidance holds all the answers. We hold all the answers. We just have to switch off the fear and tune into the love. And this is what this is all designed for. These drawing workshops aren't about sit and watching me draw. It's about getting your mental level to a space where you come from a different perspective. You start trusting life more. You start letting go of those little worries like, who's going to empty my drawers when I'm dead? And you start thinking, how am I going to live my life in the best way today? What might that look like? It's reacquainting ourselves with ourselves. Especially as parents, you know, we gear so much of our life around our kids. And rightly so, I think. In many ways, kids bring us back to the present. But also, what I find is that as parents, we don't see that because we're too busy being in our own heads. So we ignore the wisdom that kids have to share with us. And instead focus on the rubbish, like clean your bedroom, do your homework, rather than what game should we play today, or what game can I watch you play because I can't be asked to move. But, you know, it's like tapping in. Kids have that natural innate ability. We drive it out of them because it's what we've been taught to do. Home educating my kids has been the best thing because I've seen them as themselves. And it's lovely. It's really lovely. And I feel so blessed to be able to do that. And I learn from them because I see the wisdom of kids, but they lose it so quickly. Society has a way of knocking it out of them. Especially nowadays with social media and all that bullshit. And so if we can demonstrate a more spacious approach to life, then, you know, kids follow by example. You know, we're sowing a seed of something different. And that will help our kids immensely in life. And give them a whole toolbox that will be so useful to them. Much more useful than me cleaning out my drawers. So that they don't have to deal with it. Because they'll be coming from a place of love whereby they feel supported. You know, we are infinitely wise beings. So why not take advantage of that and learn from it and actually enjoy our lives rather than towing the line, doing what we think we should, do what we know we should, because it's a knowing, it's not a thinking, it's a knowing. Right, my lovelies, I'm going to have to finish here, and sending you lots of love.